Good morning, Bananimators. Tracy Strong here, friendly neighborhood animation generalist, and today we're going to analyze our gestures. So I got this fantastic request. It said it would be cool to analyze these drawings afterwards. Yes, we should absolutely analyze our gestures. Historically, I found it's good to leave days between doing your gestures and actually spending time analyzing them, because it gives you a little bit of time to like move away from it and then come back and kind of see what's happening. You can let go of how you felt about when you were drawing the session. Sometimes you feel really frustrated the whole time because you're thinking a lot, and then you come back and you're actually, all that thinking paid off. It's not as bad as I thought. And other times you feel like you were doing great and you come back and you're like, I don't actually know what I was doing here. There's a lot of confusion. I need to think a little bit more. So depending on your goals, that's going to be the type of thing that you're most essentially looking for. If you want to be a character designer, then you want maybe to think about the proportions. So when I look at the one that I ended up doing here, I can see I got about halfway to where my skirt all kind of comes together and the top half of the character. So what I would want to do to make this a little bit more appealing is to break that up a little bit more. Maybe I just want to bring that up a little higher by breaking up darks and the lights here. So there's like the head down here, that much. This is the skirt. You might want to bring it down a little bit more. See how that feels. Or if you're doing super cartoony stuff, then maybe you want to bring this up even more. Break this into simpler and simpler shapes. So maybe we want our character, make the head a little bit smaller. And you might even want to take these and straighten them out. See how you feel about that. I think like it look better down here. I'm thinking about shapes. So one thing I might want to do is just see how much of this I could simplify down, and I could use these like big tones. Yeah, so just by giving myself a few different grays there, I can see how I can break it up in a few different ways. And I can like flip it and see what it looks like the other way. And we're not looking for great structure. We're looking for the design there. I had a 5-minute timer. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do 5 minutes. I'm gonna take a little thing and I'm gonna do 5 minutes, and I just ignored the timer. It's about 5 minutes, I think. I'm not sure, but good thing would be to have your little timer. Boop, boop, happy. So that's one thing you could do. Just try and break it down into proportions and shapes and see how those shapes work well together. See how you can bring different elements together, like simplify like all these bumps into just one line. That's the type of thing I want to do, because I want to get into simplification. So this is telling me I felt really confused. I wasn't really sure where I was going. The sensible thing would be to go and try and study things that I like the design of. And then I'll have more of a visual library and vocabulary for doing that stuff. So another thing you could do if you're more interested in something like character animation, you're less worried about the design. You can just say, you know what, whatever jacked up proportions I came up with, that's right. Because if you're working for a studio and they give you a design that you hate, you're not allowed to fix it. That's the design. End of discussion. You have no say. So you have to take that bad design, you have to animate it. So here we have a bad design. It's not my job to tell you if it's good or not. It's my job to tell you how it moves. So let's think about the actual movement of this character and how well we captured that. One thing that I did incorrectly was that I have the character leaning back. A nice 3-dimensional arrow. Top of the line arrows for this. So if we bring our little line down from the neck, as we're known to do, boop. I think I even said this when I was drawing. I'm like, girl, this is not balanced. Yep. So I want to just really decide, I'm going to bring his waist back this way. Then I'm going to think about it. No, his waist is actually a little bit farther forward than his neck. So this might be a place where you're like, okay, I'm struggling to see the perspective here. What I'm going to do is really boxy sort of drawing using cylinders and stuff like that. For this big dude, I'm going to give him a cylinder across the top of his chest. I'm going to think about the line that goes right down the belly here. Dude. So he's got a little bit of a pelvic thrust. We're going to bring the pelvis out here. Boop. Nothing inappropriate. We're just drawing shapes. It's okay. And then we think about the ribs, this kind of stuff here. We're not going to get too serious about it. We're just going to draw a little form like we've been doing. And then we're going to think about where the pelvis is. We've decided it's like the center of it is here. So you can use that as our little guide to draw a little basket. Yeah. And then we bloop, 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 bloop. We can think about if we have a ground plane, like boop, boop. Let's just say our ground plane is something like that. That's, yeah, not the worst, not the best. That's what we got. We don't, like, listen, this is a hilly terrain. This is what layout gave us. We don't get to decide if our grids are good. We just have to work with it, okay? So here's where the center of my balance is. So I'm going to bring, if my feet were here and here, that would be super cool, but his stance is a little bit wider, boop, boop. And this back foot is a little bit wider, boop, boop. And because our heels are here, that's going to tell us something about where the legs go, yeah? The good thing is we can hide the legs under here. So I'm just gonna give myself grace. You know what? I'm gonna give him a nice butt. Boop, and then I'm going to really just carve that down as simple as I can. The arms, yeah, I can switch into a different color. That would be helpful. I can even go into new layer because I'm digital. Actually, if you were working on a light table, you could actually just put another paper over it as long as your initial drawing was dark enough. Let's think about it. The shoulders are pretty even. So I'm going to put my little shoulders like this, and then I'm going to simplify this arm. I'm not going to build in all that muscle and stuff. And here, if you're a character animator, you want to say, oh, you know what? I brought this arm up like this. It's actually farther down like this, and it's moved outwards this way. The big indicator if you're doing gestures is this negative shape. So if you draw in that negative shape, I'm going to think about this hand. Now, hands are a whole area of study all by themselves. I'm going to just think about a little mitten. That's the most I want is big angles of the joint. And because I have the Maboober here to work with, boop, I can figure out where this one goes. And this is often used in animation where you have the hand and you have the shoulder, and then you figure out where the elbow, where do you want the elbow to go? So it's looking like it's pretty straight back. So if this arm is going back like this in space, his elbow has to be going back in space for this lower arm to exist as at the length it does. Then you can overlap your bicep, dude. And then we have a little neck, so we'll think about just adding somewhere to put the neck here that is actually centered on the body because his head is quite a bit back here, dude. And if we liked our head, I think the head is pretty okay for what we need here. I'm going to simplify, and then I'm going to bring the head back over. Now we have a little bit of a form drawing, and we've corrected some of the angles. Now this has gotten a little bit more stiff, but depending on the action and the character and whatnot, maybe it's more important to get the pose right than to have a super fluid drawing. And you can always just slap another layer on top of this and add any of the stuff you need. So we get all those folds and stuff. So here's two different studies of the exact same drawing. We could do more things with this. Because of the dim lighting, we're losing some of the definition of the things down here, and I just decided to make it a tail. But if we just take this image on its own, we can think about how this arm feels quite a bit thicker than this arm back here. Like her shoulder looks like it's swollen. She doesn't have a lot of room for any sort of guts down here. The proportions, like her top half and her bottom, like everything just feels very short, but the head is kind of big. It's just kind of mucky. So let's do one of our skeleton studies. I won't get into super scully shapes because we don't need to know the bones of the face exactly. We need to know like the general underlying shape. That's plenty. We're gonna bring that spine down. So I want to think internally inside the character. The spine feels really straight up at the top, but even a straight spine, you've got a skeleton like this, the neck kind of comes back, and then the spine goes like this. So then you've got your super good skeleton stuff looking like that, right? So even though this skeleton is straight, it's going to go back this way. And then back here, we're going to have the sacrum somewhere. Her pelvis is moving up if my sacrum is that close to the front. Let me think a little bit because I'm not sure where I want it to go. I might actually add the rib cage in. And again, I'm going to use a cartoon rib cage. I don't need ribs. Ribs are for fine artists who do like to have that front line. That helps. You could do one line across there just to give yourself an idea of the direction. That's cool. Let's think about if she's turning. I like the idea that she's turning. So that would actually bring her hip more towards this side. Let me see. But we have the shoulders up. So what we're gonna do is that contrapposto. So let's bring the hip down like that, but have the center of the hips go that way. So we're gonna definitely change the direction of that tail, but the tail isn't serving us. It's not giving us good things. Oops, so back there is the sacrum. Not really important to us. We know the back goes kind of up a bit. Not a huge deal. Even just like coloring that in feels fine to me. That's enough. Now, I don't know what a mermaid's tail looks like. I imagine it's just an extension of our spine. So probably a mermaid wouldn't have a sacrum. And if I'm gonna give it a better S curve than I had before. So I'm gonna, all right, so now if she's turning, this is up here. We're gonna just put our shoulders in. Oop. This shoulder's back a little bit. So the really weird thing about shoulders is if you have a character, they can bring their shoulders up quite high, but they can also bring their shoulders back. So if you have a character here, you have the rib cage, they can go kind of pulled back like this. Like if the arms are behind, a character like this, they can bring the shoulders down and forward quite a bit. Like think about if you put your arms like that, then your shoulders come right out in front, right? And your clavicles are kind of coming down that way. They're difficult. They're confusing. There's so many. They're very malleable. They kind of float around. One of the things that took me the longest to figure out, since we're doing this little skeleton hand, we can actually get this closer to where it was. So I kind of had it in the right direction, but I can just give myself a little box hand here. And then I can think about, okay, if the waist is somewhere around here, then the elbow is going to come in an arc around this. Like the bone has an arc that it can live in. So we can move around on this arc and see what is the right thing to do. So we can go and kind of test it out and then go and feel like that right angle. So if you're looking at a person in real life, you could even kind of like ghost it and be like, it's kind of 30 degrees, kind of 50 degrees. If you are a logic brain like me and you don't like feelings, you can just say, it's 20 degrees up from where you were, and then we can just put these bones in. So we're going to do cartoon bones. If you're going to study any bones, the bones of the elbow and the wrist, those are the ones to put your time into, and the muscles there, because the shape of the form is incredibly affected by the direction of the bones in the wrist. Like I wouldn't spend a lot of time on foot bones, aside from like the big shapes I showed before, but the lower arm, that's worth its salt. So then we got our clavicle, and it goes out like that. This arm we can't see, so I am going to put the elbow here and keep it very light. And then because our arm is going this way, we're looking at our two bones like that. And then this pelvis feels like it's not quite what I need here. I do want it to be this way. I could get away with something simpler. There. So now we have our little skeleton of our mermaid. On top of that, we could start thinking about, okay, what muscles do they have that are filling these things in? What would that tail actually look like? Some people I've seen draw like bones. Like you can kind of see that they have a little bit of structure like that. Like there's leg bones in there. So that might be something to think about, like what your actual mermaid musculature and stuff look like. If you're really interested in doing realistic mermaids, then that might be something that you're interested in. But for this type of purpose, I feel like that is effective. So let's see what we've done. So we've done kind of a simple shape one. We've kind of broken it up into forms. We've drawn ourselves a skeleton. What can we do with this character? Maybe we can just play with the idea of like a little bit of simplification again, but I'm just going to try and see where I can connect to these lines, and maybe I will hate it. I'm not really sure what I'm going to get attempting this, but I'm going to just see where I can put in long curves and where I can put in angles and see how I feel about it. So if I do that with this here, it feels like it twists the whole torso more to that side, isn't it? Like if I want her body to come back around to where it is, this curve here doesn't work. So let's change our mind about that and make that an angle instead. Feels a little bit more right for bringing that torso around. Bring the neck up here. We're gonna have to bring the head up and fit it in here somehow. That's a problem for future me. Let's take a look at this shape in here. It's a lot more of a 90-degree angle. And then we can give little fingies. The hand needs to be long enough to be a hand. It's bringing the head up and stuff. So I does feel like the head is getting more into the right position here. The hand, we got these little other fingers back there. We can deal, that's the detailed problem we can deal with in the future. Let's just give her a little quickie cartoon face. Give her ear up here. So the ear in position with the eyes, a really easy way to tilt the head down. Your eyes are down here and your ear is up here and you're looking down. Let me see about this hair. So the hair actually goes over the thing like this. And I like to think of hair of like pooling and puddling when it's like straight like this. Depending on the hair type, you're gonna have to use like different techniques, obviously, to do some cloudy shapes or something. So let's do it. Put a really long curve here. I'm not too worried about cutting off her fingers. This hand, I feel like, has to move out a little bit because you can, I don't know how big this looks on your screen, but if I look at the curve on the thing, her fingers are just coming down like this. So this might need to move out a little bit in the future. Not a big deal. I feel like this should be, yeah, it goes right up to that crease. Then the skirt comes down. So this hip is forward, then the shapes are going more outward. So if I think about the simple shapes of like a bell, that, and then put a front bell here, and then we can carve out some loopies from that bell shape to like that ruffle. And then we can have some more stuff coming out underneath as a second layer. Okay, so I started super duper simple like that, bell shape. Then you go along and draw some squiggles like this. Give a little think to what your squiggles look like. Then you can see how those ruffles go up and cut out the thing. So very simple shape, carve in the details, and then add the little like rufflies and stuff later. And then once you have this, you can say, okay, oop, I'm like following the direction of it like that. If we wanted to put stripes on our character, something like that. Animating that would be much harder, but you add that in after everything else is working, after you get all those pipe folds down. Then we're gonna like look at the vertical, because we have the time to do it. We're gonna look, the foot is here, not over there. So we're going to draw a little foot, and then the back foot is resting on the ground, but we can draw another vertical line. So we're just seeing the toes of her foot here. So I'm gonna color those in, helps me see where they are. He has stepped in paint. And whoop. So we can just see how we took what we had and we've taken it and seen where our straights can be straighter and where our curves can be curvier. So I've made a much curvier side here. I've put some big monster straights in there. And then I can take it away once I've made all those decisions and I can ask myself again, now, how do I feel about this? So if we were to take this and then do a study like that, from this one, we could see that her pelvis should be much lower. And so this leg sticking out is too far. So one thing we could do to make it feel a little bit less awkward is actually bring it up a little bit, I think. That feels a little bit better. We could even do the old flip-a-rooney. So now I'm seeing that this arm is a little bit longer than this arm. But I like how all the lines are parallel. So this is where we ended up. And I think the most important thing to take away from this is my goal is not to make a nice illustration. When you're practicing, you don't need to have a finished product. It's not for anybody. It's an exploration. I can take all of these gestures and explore down different avenues of simplification, of bringing it into form drawings, of trying to figure out how to make it cartoonified, of figuring out how we can get different tangents and stuff. Like, how do we like tangents? Let's try and get the most tangents we can. Let's try and get all of those like convenient lines to line up. Like, let's even break this down and see how we can simplify it. Even cubism, something like that. When you're practicing, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's only learning. So do whatever you want. Just have fun, go down these paths, see where they take you. And the next time that you have to do something that is finished, you will have so many more problem-solving skills in your tool belt that you will go faster. And if you take all your drawings and you go down these different roads and like different types of ways that you could explore how to create these forms, then when you're doing your gesture drawing, you will go at light speed because you have so much in your brain. So that's it. Really? All we have to do is All we have to... Oh my god. Adeline! So thanks for dropping by. Like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do. And I will see you in... Really? I will see you in the next video.